Welcome back, haters. Let me take a second to reintroduce myself since it's been such a long time. My name is Shelana and I own a little business called the West Coast Kraeers, but most people know me as trillianinspace, one of the moderators of the Cricut subreddit. I also have a very neglected blog called the Design Space Haters Club, where I'm supposed to write about my most frequently answered questions on Reddit. Now that we're refreshed on who I am and why some people trust what I have to say, it's important to point out that these are my opinions, and this video is in no way sponsored by anyone. Well, unless you count my husband Kevin, who is an incredible artist and graphic animator, and recently started illustrating children's books based on the things our daughters dream up. So everyone say thanks to my husband for unwittingly sponsoring this content. And buy a book, so he can't be mad that I bought 2 new Cricuts that I don't even need. Semi-shocked they released the Explore 5 364 days after the release of its predecessor, I picked one up to test it. From the launch video, it looked as if there were no substantial changes and just aesthetic ones. As someone who doesn't like to write checks her butt can't cash, I needed to be sure that that was the case. After 1 week of testing, I felt that maybe since I'm a maker owner, I was being a little too harsh. So I picked up an Explore 4 for a true head-to-head comparison, and the verdict is, skip it. I taped some of my tests and give detailed reasons later in this video, but I know most of you want a too long didn't watch summary, so here it is. The build quality feels chintzy compared to its predecessor. It feels more like a JoyMax than it does an Explore 5. The completely plastic build also feels easy to break, and I would not be surprised if someone cracked the pen holder while snapping in one of the pens. The fact that you can't close it leaves the temperamental sensors exposed to dirt and debris. You could easily solve this by covering it, but why should you have to? It can't do anything the Explore 4, or the Explore 3 for that matter, could. They claim a new scoring tool, but it doesn't work better than the stylus, and it's literally just the same tip as the medium foil tool. Cricut seems aware that the value of the 5 next to the 4 doesn't seem like an upgrade, so they wiped the 4 from their website and have asked most of their authorized resellers to do the same. Just after launch, you could find some screaming deals on the 4 in stores, but even at full price, the 4 is the better buy. The new pen holder is absolutely awful. Prior models have 2 tool carriers that move independently, but this model has 1 tool holder with a sidecar for the pen. The pen must be removed from the sidecar before you can score, foil, or cut. And if you don't remove the pen, well, say hello to your next project fail. They did not design it this way on accident, which brings us to the next point. The redesign of the pen holder offers less flexibility for pens you can use. Cricut loves to force you into proprietary garbage. That's why Smart Vinyl is an inch wider than standard rolls. They want to build recurring revenue anywhere they can. Don't believe me? Just read their investor website. Spending $30 for a box of pens when you only need 1 color is absurd. And while it's still possible to hack some pens to work, some favorites just won't fit. And finally, you couldn't expect Design Space to remain unscathed in a review from its #1 hater, could you? Cricut seems to be obsessed with breaking a system that's already broken by, and I quote, dramatically simplifying the overall user experience. But in reality, they are just catering to the dumbest among us. Between the incessant pop-ups and the guided workflows that seem to confuse more people than it helps, I feel like if they spent more time listening to and implementing the software changes users actually want, and less time trying to force users to believe they need something or hastily releasing the same machines with a new number stamped on, the weakening engagement and lack of enthusiasm they complain about in their investment report would fix itself. Now, I said there's one possible reason you might like the Explore 5, but I'm not giving that one up so easily, so keep watching if you want to know. I ran 5 head-to-head tests using the same cut files and the same preset cut settings for each project. Parts of each section will be sped up for time except for the print and cut section, which will run at full speed. With HTV and adhesive vinyl, there really is no difference between the machines. Cricut understands most crafters are starting to move away from HTV in favor of direct-to-film or sublimation anyway, which is why their new attempt at monetizing their platform beyond cutting machines is selling DTF transfers. The 4 finishes first, but only because it reads and loads the map before you hit go. Using the machine-specific Cricut band pens and their dedicated scoring tools, I ran a project that wrote text in one color and did little doodles in another color to see how they fare with multiple tool changes. They finished basically at the same time, and it's clear when we view the results later on that the 5 applies more pressure to both the pen and the scoring tool. I don't think this is beneficial for the pen, but you can easily replicate the scoring tool on the 4 by using the foil tip instead. Next up, I used the new Cricut Universal pens in both machines. When you buy a box of it, it comes with an adapter that allows the pens to be used in the previous generation Explorers and Makers. The original Joy and Joy Extra do not need an adapter because they are sized to fit those models. The 5 finished first, but only because I forgot to press go on the 4 until after the 5 started. When we get to the results later, the 5 didn't look as good, but I think I might have messed up inserting the pen into the machine and the tip got bent. I went with using white Sakura Jelly Roll pens on black cardstock for this next test because which white pen works best with the Cricut is always a hot question. I have an adapter set for the previous generation and I used painter's tape to thicken the barrel of the pen to fit securely in the 5. It was just shy of 10 millimeters when I checked with my calipers. This time I remember to start both machines simultaneously and the 4 finished first. For crafting science, I decided to run a test of what happens if you don't unload the pen from the machine during a cut. The answer is you ruin the pen, you ruin your paper, you draw on the mat, and nothing gets cut out. The final test was print and cut, and if you made it this far, you have found the only reason someone might like this version over the previous models. Full disclosure, I have never had issues calibrating or getting perfect cuts for my stickers, and if you hate how much wasted paper you have with Cricut's print and cut, then this machine will not solve that. Side note on wasted paper. I love how they added print and cut to the Joy too, but you lose twice as much printable space per sheet because you need to print 2 sets of registration marks. But back to this, you can see that the 5 has already begun cutting while the 4 is still hunting for the registration marks. In the end, the 5 seems to be twice as fast completing the cut. If you are pushing out a lot of sticker sheets, this could be super helpful. I have only cut a dozen sheets with the machine, and the quality is no different to that of my makers. But before we get too carried away with praise, just today there was a post on the subreddit from someone who can no longer get the machine to recognize the registration marks consistently or get accurate cuts when they are able to get a reading. So different day, same story. I would still recommend the competitors for stickers only, and if you want to stay with Cricut and plan on doing anything besides stickers, then get a maker or a previous model Explorer if you can. I must also compliment that the calibration on this model is a breeze. No more picking lines, the machine does all the work for you with very little need for user intervention. Okay, so here's the machine up close. Zoom out a little bit. So it says Explore 5 there. So it just feels cheap, and you can see and touch the ribbon cable there in the back. The belt is hidden behind this roller bar, which is different to the previous model, and I will show you in a second. But the thing that really is annoying about it is the tool carrier. So these don't move independently, but when you look at the test I did where I didn't take the pen out, you can see how that works. So it did the draw first, and then I didn't take the pen out, and when it went to do the cut, you see the pen comes down, but it didn't actually cut anything. And here is when it does cut. So it looks like the tool carrier goes further down when the pen's not installed. So the pen prevented it from going down, which is why it didn't cut through. It only has 2 buttons. This is load and go, and this is unload. So there's no on off. It's on all the time until you unplug it. It does not have any, points to put anything in it. It does not have any adapters. This is the USB, so it's just USB-C to USB-C on this one. There's no old printer cable, and there is no charge port on this one like they had on the makers for tablets. But I don't think the Explorer ever had that, so that's not new. It does have a deeper pocket on the door for your tools. It doesn't have, they did away with the magnet and like the spaces, so you can kind of customize these. There's already a bunch of 3D printed tools for this machine. Another thing I don't like about it is that you see when it's closed, it's still exposed. And there's one of the sensors right there for the mat measurement. And we know that these sensors sometimes like to act up. So if you're not using it regularly or having it covered, dirt, debris can build up in there, and well, you're SOL. All right, and here is the 4, which you should already know. So the difference, like I said, is that it has, you know, the exterior port to put your tools in. It's got the old printer style cable for the USB connection. It's fully covered when it's closed, so you can protect all the interior. The ribbon cable is behind this, so you can never touch it. It's super sensitive and super thin, so it could rip easily if, you know, you have kids or animals that like to attack things, just so you know. And but the belt is exposed here, so there's that. The pockets are less deep than the other model, but you can see here it's got like the alcove for like a tool, goes in like that. And then this used to have a magnet, and I noticed that on the Maker 4 it didn't come with one when I got it, but the Maker 3 has it, and the original Maker has it, and I'm sure the old Explorers had it. So you can put extra blades here. They are just doing away with that, probably to save money. Knowing Cricut as I do, that is probably the reason for that. All right, so let's have a look at the results. Over here we have the ones from the 4. Over here we have the ones from the 5. So this is the first one with all of the different draw angles and the score lines. You can see the score lines a little bit better on the 5, but I mean, the scoring stylus still does a pretty good job. And here is with the scoring tool. I mean, basically the same. The draws on both came out pretty good. So this is using the Cricut brand pens for the older machines, and this is the new version of the Cricut brand pens. One thing about the scoring tool for the Explorer 5 is it is exactly the same as the medium tip foil tool. Let's see if I can get it to zoom in. So, I mean, they're the same tool, so you're not missing out on much with that. The next is me using the Jelly Roll pens. So this is it taped in, or no, this is the adapter. So I have an adapter set for the 4, and we knew that would work. Taping it into the 5 seemed to work for this. So with this is the adapter for the older machines, but this is basically a model of what the Explorer 5 has for the pen holder. So you can see this is just snaps in like that. The pens have these like little, zoom in, little nooks here for it to snap into. So with the way that the 5 holds pens, you are limited on, even if people create adapters, which I'm sure a lot of people will be working on to get them to fit into the little 5 space. And you can see that I was able to get this by, it's about 10 millimeters is the thickness that the pen has to be to stay in place. So I wrapped it around and it's pretty tight in there. So you would need a pen that would fit in there and then be able to drop down through that. So like an ultra fine tip Sharpie would work. You see how it comes down? Just needs to be tightened up a little bit. This pen will work. But what will not work is something like a regular Sharpie. So if you value being able to use a large regular Sharpie, or basically any thick pen or any pen you want, then definitely the 4 is probably the better bet, because the 5 Cricut really tried to limit the amount of usage that you can get out of it. Here is them side by side with the same Cricut pen. I don't know if I didn't snap this in properly because this one is a little, I don't know, looks a little weird to me. And then here it is on the 4. And then with the stickers, you saw that using the same setting straight off, the 5 worked perfectly. And with the 4, it did not cut through on that setting, but you can still see that the calibration is perfect. And I went back and changed the setting and did another cut, and it cut through perfectly on my subsequent test. And the final cut test we did was the vinyl. So this one is from the 4. And let me get my trusty weeding tools so I can actually see. So I think that for vinyl and HTV, it's basically the same deal. Like, you're not gonna, I think Cricut has cutting vinyl down to a science that any new machine is going to do it just fine. So there is really no difference between the two here. And this was using the everyday iron-on setting, even though this is not Cricut HTV. Well, that's it. Please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. If this video helped you make a decision on this model, please tell me why in the comments. If I missed anything or you want to see another test, please let me know here or come say hi on Reddit. Until the next time we can hate design space together. Thanks for watching and bye.